Hello, this is poetry lesson number 2, word choice and imagery. It's not a very long lesson, but we're going to talk about some of the poems that we've already read and figure out kind of how the word choices create imagery. So, as we talked about in the last lesson, poetry is the transfer of an image, idea, or emotions from a speaker to the reader. If it's that, then selecting the appropriate word choice is crucial to the meaning of the poem. I don't know why that's left off there, but it's alright. So it's a crucial part of the poetry process. I always think of poetry like painting. Poets should begin with an idea, image, or emotion, so you have this overall concept, a result from the poem. And then we try to capture on paper by using words, just like artists might have this complex and complete picture in their head, and they have to recreate it through their brush strokes or pencil strokes or whatever, and you're building it through layers. You can see the final product, and you're trying to create it. And that's the same thing with poetry. So let's consider this poem by Ezra Pound. It's called In the Station at the Metro. The apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bough. Very short poem. It's a 2-line poem. Usually it's called an epigram. The apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bough. You might say, okay, great, my kid could do that, just like you might think about with art. But let's consider what Pound is doing here. Ezra Pound's poem has a very strong image and only 20 words if you include the title. You do need to know that title that's in the station at the metro, metro being a subway. The poem describes a crowded subway station and draws a connection between the first and second line, the faces in the crowd and the petals, but doesn't directly compare them. There are no verbs in this poem, and there's only 20 words, 14 in the actual poem itself. So let's look at some of them. The apparition. We can think of ghosts, they're called apparitions, but it also means the sudden or surprising appearance of something. So we might be an empty station, all of a sudden a train comes in and people are coming out or waiting to get in train and there's a larger crowd, or just everybody comes down the steps of the metro station at once to get into the subway. So it's this idea that all of a sudden there's a large crowd and the speaker of the poem is observing it. So the coming together of these faces, the sudden appearance, the ghost-like appearance of these people. What are they doing? Are they going to work? We don't really know. And then the faces. So it's not just the people, it's their faces. And this is synecdoche. Synecdoche. It's a hard word to say. Synecdoche. It means part describing the whole. So we might say all hands on deck. That means everyone come up, or head of cattle, meaning the whole cow. But it's just what we use. So we're faces. By using the word faces instead of heads or bodies, the apparition of the bodies in the crowd. Apparition of these faces. These, that's important, not the, but these particular faces. We think of face, that's the window for emotion, so we can start to put together facial expressions. Gives us a focus. So these two words, apparition, faces, these faces, in this first line is very crucial, and it's a crowd. So faces in the crowd. No one really stands out. Second line, the petals. We have a semicolon after the crowd. Petals, meaning it's changing subject, but they're related. We might think that the faces are like petals. Your unique flower or whatever. So we start thinking of petals. We think of rose petals or whatever. But then we continue on. Petals on a wet black bough. All of a sudden, the image changes a bit from these nice, fresh petals, romantic flowers, to wet black. think of them wilted, withering, dying, damaged. So a tree branch after a spring storm, no flowers, perfect. The petals are strewn all over the place. They're dying. There's no life. It's the in-between stage of a flowering tree and growing leaves. We also have the alliteration black bough, the word wet. If we say all this out loud, wet black bough, it feels difficult to say, and it leaves us with this depressing sound at the end, the ow. And it's meant to rhyme with crowd, bow, they do rhyme. But all of a sudden we get these two ideas pushed together, and we're forced to reconcile them. Ezra Pound described this as an equation, not necessarily a poem. So with the poem, we're getting a single image of kind of the bleakness of daily life in the subway, people moving in and out of trains, their faces sagging, maybe dying, people dealing with their own stuff. Yet it is somewhat beautiful if you think of it as well. People are coming and going. There's that beauty in seeing a whole bunch of strangers and imagining their lives. So Pound is creating an image with words and assigning an emotion to it, all in 14 words. Our emotions follow along with the sound of the word, leaving us feeling just as despondent as the people in the subway. Think, life sucks. And that's kind of what he's trying to do with us. He's manipulating our feelings with just word choices. Let us also consider a poem read last week, Henry Taylor's Artichoke. Here we have from the middle of the poem. When she set the clipped green globe before him, he only wondered, as he always did, when he plucked from the base the first thick leaf, dipped it into the sauce, and caught her eye, as he deftly set the velvet curve against the inside edges of his lower teeth, and drew the tender pulp toward his tongue. It's a very long description, and it's meant to be. So let's look at some words. We have clipped green globe, the L's, the G's, all those words together form alliteration, and it's describing the artichoke. It's round, which is not the normal shape of an artichoke. It's more spear shaped. So it's been trimmed, which is important because there's little thorns or spikes at the end of each each artichoke leaf. Then we have this long sentence. So he plucked from the base of the first thick leaf. So he's inverting that sentence a little bit and drawing it out as he plucked the first leaf from the base, and instead plucked from the base the first thick leaf. So why is he drawing that out? Well, let's just slowly think of this image and the sensuousness of it. And then deftly set, velvet curve. There's some L's in there, so there's lots of E sounds. And if you say it out loud, deftly set the velvet curve. Your mouth is creating these nice shapes, and it just sounds fun to say. But it's kind of like eating deftly set the velvet curve. And then finally, tender pulp toward his tongue. There's more alliteration with the T's. Tender toward tongue. And the pulp, tongue, your mouth is opening towards the end. Tender pulp towards the tongue. So saying these words out loud is very beneficial to you getting the overall feeling of the poem. And I always think poetry needs to be read out loud. So words matter. Because really what he's saying is when she put the round vegetable in front of him, he wondered as he took a piece and ate it. That's all that's really happening. He's eating a piece of artichoke. But instead it's drawn out, it's described, it's creating an act that answers the question, why do people think of this as food when it's more sensuous than anything else? We get an extension, a drawing out of the senses. We feel, we see the artichoke. We can almost smell or taste it if we really imagine it. It creates a sensory experience. So I like to think of poetry as creation, and it's recreation. So every time we read a poem, it is being recreated. All these images are formed from specific words, so the words matter. They are chosen to create a specific imagery. And because of that, we need to revise. Now, there's an old, it's from the Beatniks, but the idea is first thought, best thought. But you still need to revise poems to get those ideas and images across. And so you read your poem. Is it doing what you want to do? What words could actually say something better? Definitely read poetry out loud, whether it's a reading assignment or your own poem. You get a different sense for the rhythm, different sense of the images and how it feels. And how it feels and sounds helps create the overall effect of the poem. So we'll do some things this week to help us figure out word choice and image creation. But I hope this is helpful.